Hello, this is Demore Lachetti, and this is our week 4 vlog. There's no games this week. We're just reading some things and talking about the game industry, how these articles about the game industry reports have confirmed or surprised us in some of our beliefs about the game industry. For the first question, we're supposed to talk about what information confirmed our beliefs about the game industry. I took most of that from the GDC report from 2021, and it confirmed that PlayStation, they're pretty much ahead when it comes to consoles in terms of people making things, selling things, and stuff like that. It also confirmed that Facebook streamers are bad for advertising because no one watches it, and it's fairly new, but not a lot of people mess with Facebook anymore anyway, besides keeping up with family. Everyone seems to be moving to the subscription service, which I have noticed there's a lot more subscription stuff popping up, especially on PlayStation, where they keep trying to go spend $20 a month and you can play whatever you want. That's on here. Xbox has the same thing with the Game Pass, and I think I've noticed it popping up more with like Origin. I think's kind of doing a subscription thing where you get more free things, and a few other places are doing it as well, so that wasn't too surprising. Most work normal weeks, which I guess this is more. It isn't too surprising, it's often more reported on the extremes where they're working like 80 hours and stuff a week. But it being more normal, except for like a couple times a year, doesn't surprise me. It was just 40 to 50 hour weeks seem to be normal. It's normally less than that, unless something is going on. It seems to be more individualized when the extremes happen. It's like people doing it on their own, not necessarily everyone doing it. The increased accessibility, that wasn't too surprising. I've noticed that going on in a lot of things, and having more options and stuff to stabilize cameras or modes for color blindness and stuff. I have noticed those popping up on my games, so that pretty much confirmed it, that they all are trying, or a majority this year compared to last year, are moving towards more accessibility compared to before, when they were just kind of like, yeah, maybe. Now they're like, yeah, we're going to do it. So yeah, that's not been too surprising, considering some of my newer games seem to be a bit more accessible. Like, I've noticed motion sickness was going down in certain games compared to the older games. So they're trying. And along with that, there has been a bigger push for diversity, which I have noticed going on, and a lot of games and even in industries are constantly like, we're hiring women, we're hiring minorities and stuff. So I have seen those pop up, like, send us your portfolios because we want people in this category to hire more of. So that's not surprising either, because I've seen that stuff popping up on the internet. The majority of the people that work there are men. That's not surprising, especially in the US. And as for like the developer satisfaction art survey from 2021, it confirmed that most people worked from home like the rest of us did. And the pandemic was mostly negative towards games, as it was in a lot of industry. It caused a lot of delays. Not very long delays, that was a little surprising, but still delays. And like the rest of us, their work life became more balanced. I noticed the majority of people said that their work life had become more balanced, and no matter what the industry was, because they're spending more time at home and with their families, and when they get stuff done, they don't have to stay in front of the computer. They can go mess with their kids and stuff. So that wasn't too surprising. It's just a lot of things I had already thought about, so it wasn't too bad. And what surprised me more was that mobile games were ahead of consoles, that they were like close to PC when it comes to things being developed and made for them. I don't know, I shouldn't be surprised considering how much I see on, like, pop up on my phone, but I also dislike playing on my phone because it hurts my hands to mess with it for too long. So I guess I just hadn't been paying too much attention to that in particular. One thing that really did surprise me is that 30% of games or funding comes from personal funds of like the developers and stuff. I would thought that the production and crowdsourcing and stuff would have taken more of that than it did. I mean, the majority was the companies themselves paying for it, but that was a surprising amount of people having to use their own money for it to develop their own games and stuff. And that's not saying like that's also including like these AAA companies. It's not just like the indie developers or self-developers. So that was a little surprising. In the terms of ad revenue, small investments that they made, like paying streamers and like small time places to advertise their games, I didn't realize how much of it they were using. I thought it was still more of like big ads like on YouTube or TV and stuff. But apparently they are moving more towards paying smaller people to advertise their games, because apparently more people are watching that compared to TV and ads on YouTube, because people skip those most of the time. And if they're anything like me, the TV don't work half the time anyway, so I don't see commercials. So it shouldn't be surprising, but I don't watch streamers. It kind of annoys me to watch them, so I guess I don't see a lot of it that way. And I don't watch YouTubers too much either, so I think that's just more of me self-isolating as to why this is surprising to me, as it might not be surprising to other people who actually pay more attention to this stuff than I do. Consoles kind of surprised me in the amount that they don't give back to developers. They keep most of the revenue for the games, which I guess if they are also the producers, that makes more sense. But surprisingly, they take a large amount of the revenue from people who make their own games. And that Steam and direct selling seems to be the best way to get your money back from making a game. They give more back compared to everyone else does. So making your own site and selling your games from there and selling through Steam seems to be the best. Apparently Epic Games doesn't give a lot back. They keep most of the revenue, which that was kind of surprising. And now I feel bad because they give out free games all the time. And I'm realizing that the game developers may not be getting their money's worth from that. So I feel a little bad about that. So it does make more sense of why PC is doing better when it comes to selling games and having more games developed for them compared to console, because people want their money back. So I guess if you're like a first-time developer and stuff, PC is the way to go. Despite the fact that I noticed more accessibility going into games, I was surprised to learn that a majority of game companies weren't really interested in making things accessible. There's more of a push about it this year versus last year, but it surprised me the lower number that it was. I thought it would be higher than that. It was like a 20 or 30% compared to like what I thought it was. I thought it would at least be like 50 or 60. But it seems to be a lot of companies really, I guess they're doing well enough that they're not too concerned with it. So it's getting pushed forward a little bit, just not as much as I had thought originally. One thing that did kind of surprise me is that people apparently only spend about 10 years in the game industry, or at least as developers. I thought it would be longer than that, considering like some of the people I follow have been in there for 20 or 30 years. I didn't realize that's a minority of people. Most people stop after 10 years and don't come back, which kind of puts a damper on wanting to work in the game development industry, because it's not going to be too long term. You got 10 years and you're out, unless for some reason you manage to stay longer. So that was kind of a surprise. People just don't stay in it as compared to other places. They don't stay at all. And when it goes back to the survey, the satisfaction survey from 2021, that one surprised me more than it confirmed anything. It surprised me that most of them seem to be staying with the working at home. They actually seem to like that. And now a lot of companies are like, we're going to keep the option open permanently, compared to, we're hoping this is over, come back. Maybe people are just working better from home, so they're letting them stay there. It seemed to be self-employed people, like freelancers especially, had a more negative impact from the pandemic than people who are actually employed by these places, like full-time. most people do get a start in freelance, but it looks like this may be a bad time to like go into the industry as a freelance person. Something I saw that was kind of bad, but it looked like a majority of companies were using the pandemic as a reason to fire like not only self-employed people that they hired like freelance, but genderqueer, which I'm using as an umbrella term for gender neutral, trans, and anyone who is not cisgendered. They took the pandemic as a sign to fire more of them than they did men, women, or ethnic minority people. So they got rid of more queer people than they did anything during the pandemic, that's a little worrying. Just looking at that, it's like they're targeting people to fire, and I'm not exactly sure why, besides that one thing they all have in common, which seems like a good reason to make a discriminatory lawsuit against some of these companies if that's the majority of what they're firing compared to everybody else. That's kind of bad. Makes me kind of wonder about some people going into it that want to go into it, hoping they'll be okay. A lot of people are reporting, especially in freelance, again, freelance is being targeted big time, that their future work has been negatively impacted from the pandemic. They're having a hard time trying to find jobs after they got fired. No one will hire them. They're just keeping their employees and not hiring anyone outside of them. So that seems to be how the majority of people kind of get into this industry, or at least try to break through, is through freelance. So it's kind of, again, that's bad, but after reading these reports, I'm not sure if I even wanted to go into the game industry anyway. I'm taking game design as more of a dipping my toe into it to see if I'm interested at all, because personally I like animation. It's fun. I like seeing the things I make move and stuff, but I don't know where I want to go, and that's the problem. So this is kind of making me a little iffy. Like, it's not as bad as I thought it was. Like, things are definitely getting better, but there are still some very negative things going on in the game industry. But after this class, I'll figure out if that's what I really want to do, or if it's just not for me. And some of this may impact my feelings about it. I don't know. I'm still very much undecided of what I want to do after school. So depending on how the game industry is when I finally graduate, it may change, but it will change by that point. I may or may not. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what I want to do with my life at this point. And hopefully after this class, I'll have more of a push of maybe I want to get into games and maybe I don't. So it's hard to say at this point of what this information is going to do for me until after I at least make my first game, to see how this is going, or maybe by the end of class, maybe I'll love it and want to do it for the rest of my life, and the pushes to the more positive changes may make me want to try to go in and push those things even further, or I may hate it, and all these negatives may just make me just completely drop out of game design as a whole. So it's hard to tell at this point. But I'll see you next week. Hopefully there'll be something more fun to do next week rather than worry about the future.